This aircraft was used in many roles during World War II, and though it was not as fast and deadly as the famous fighter planes of the era, it's well worth a look because of its unique construction, abilities and looks. So today we will take a look at the Focke-Wulf Fw-189. The reconnaissance and artillery spotter planes were used since the First World War in all armies around the world. To fit this role, the main requirements were the good visibility and ability to carry cameras and dedicated observer crew members. But as the world entered in the 1930s and aviation technology started to quickly evolve, and the fast monoplane started to replace the old and slow biplane, this changed. The German Luftwaffe in the early and mid-1930s used the Heinkel HE-46 as their reconnaissance aircraft, which was designed in 1931. It had excellent visibility and handling, but quickly started to become obsolete. So in 1935, Henschel offered their HS-122 prototype as a replacement. However, at first the design proved to be not much of an improvement over the Heinkel plane. So after a redesign, it evolved into the HS-126, which was considered a great reconnaissance aircraft and saw action during the Spanish Civil War. During this conflict, it quickly became clear that the new and fast fighter planes that appeared over the battlefield are a grave danger to the slow reconnaissance aircrafts. The RLM foreseen this, and right after the HS-126 was introduced in 1937, they already issued new specifications for its replacement. The new specifications called for increased defensive armament, a crew of 3, increased engine power, around 900 horsepower, and overall higher performance. The new aircraft also had to be able to carry 200 kilograms of bombs. The specifications were sent to Arado, Focke-Wulf and Blohm+Voss, and the company started working on their entries in March 1937. Arado entered their AR-198 design, which was a fairly conventional looking plane featuring a gondola for the observer. This plane was preferred initially, but flight tests showed an overall poor handling, and the Air Ministry was concerned about Arado's insufficient manufacturing capacity, so the design was dropped. Blohm+Voss on the other hand proposed a very radical design with their BV-141, which was an asymmetrical aircraft designed in a way the engine and propeller won't hamper the visibility. This radical design sparked little interest in the officials, but Blohm+Voss developed the prototype on their own expense. But only a handful of them were built, and they never entered service. Finally, Focke-Wulf entered their Fw-189 design. It was a twin-boom aircraft with a stepless glazed cockpit in the center and using two 465 horsepower engines. It also featured an interesting rear cone housing the tail gunner, which could be rotated around. Focke-Wulf received a contract for 3 prototypes, which were ready by the end of 1938. After the successful flight test, additional prototypes were ordered. Some of those carried refinements and smaller changes, but there were some interesting modifications as well. The V5 was the model for the intended trainer variant, with a completely changed fuselage and cockpit. The first V1 prototype was later completely rebuilt and modified into a heavily armored ground attack aircraft with a small armored cockpit. The V6 prototype was a similarly built ground attack concept as well. Early 1940, Focke-Wulf received an order for the first pre-production batch of the planes, followed by an order for the first 20 production ones, and not long after the first ones were delivered to the Luftwaffe units. The Fw-189 was 11.9 meters long, with a wingspan of 18.4 meters. It was powered by 2 Argus AS410 engines, producing 465 horsepower each. The plane had a maximum speed of 344 km an hour, a cruise speed of 317 km an hour, and a service ceiling of 7,000 meters. The maximum combat range was 970 km. The plane's armament consisted of two 7.92mm machine guns mounted in the wings. One 7.92mm machine gun in the dorsal turret, and another one in the very interesting rear cone gun mount. Starting with the A2 version, the turrets were upgraded to dual machine guns. The secondary armament was 4 50kg bombs under the wings. The main variants of the FW-189 were the A1, the initial production variant with single machine guns in the turrets. From this variant they built VIP transport and tropicalized versions as well. The A2 version introduced the double-barreled machine guns in the turrets. The A4 was a planned ground attack variant, featuring two 20mm cannons in the wings, and additional armor protection around the fuselage, engines, and fuel tanks. The FW-189B was the training version, based on the V5 prototype. The FW-189C variant was a planned heavy ground attack aircraft, as a competition for the Henschel HS-129. Though the pilots favored the FW-189, its cost was deemed too high and didn't go to production. The FW-189 started to arrive to Luftwaffe units in spring 1940, but first only for service trials. After the successful trials, it was ordered to full production. During 1941, some 250 of them were delivered. But at the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, many units still used the old HS-126 reconnaissance planes and slowly converted to the new planes as deliveries continued. The aircraft seen heavy use in the Eastern Front, and their construction was tested many times when they were targeted by Soviet anti-aircraft guns and fighter planes. The FW-189 was very agile, and many times it was able to outturn the attacking fighters in the hands of a capable pilot. They usually carried 4 50kg bombs as well, in case they have the opportunity to attack some light targets. As the Soviet army gained strength and counterattacked, the reconnaissance missions became more and more dangerous, and the Luftwaffe lost many of these planes despite the fighter escorts. The Soviet fighter strength increased, combined with the huge amount of anti-aircraft batteries, making reconnaissance flights harder and harder, and by 1944, the FW-189s were high-value targets for enemy fighters. During this year, some of them were converted to night fighter role, featuring an onboard radar and an upward-facing 20mm cannon. The FW-189 was also used by other Axis nations, such as Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. Though this aircraft was not the most numerous, and wasn't as famous or glamorous as some fighters or bombers, its unique looks and construction makes it very interesting amongst World War II planes. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.